Stranger Things Season 2 brought with it a huge number of 80s throwbacks, and one of the most notorious? The Mind Flayer. Warning, we're about to talk about some minor plot points here, so spoilers ahead. Now, what is a Mind Flayer? The Mind Flayer is a creature from Dungeons & Dragons lore. Specifically, the humanoid species comes from the Forgotten Realms campaign. They are, however, more commonly known as Illithids. Some theorize the Mind Flayers to be a race of aliens who had time-traveled from the future. Others think they are a cursed, mutant offspring of humans from a distant world. And others believe they come from the Far Realm, a plane of pure madness. But what we do know is that they were feared throughout the Underdark, a massive network of underground tunnels and caves. This labyrinth played host to a number of evil beings, all who were pushed out at the end of the Age of Demons. It was here that they lived and died for the most part. The Mind Flayers believe themselves to be the master race, making them a perfect example of lawful evil in the D&D world. They're essentially tentacle-faced Nazis. But why were they feared? The Mind Flayers were evil and sadistic. They had psionic and telepathic abilities which allowed them to engage in mental warfare with opponents. The Mind Flayers were longtime slavers, as they generally walked around with 2 subordinates at any given time, or more. They would use their slaves to conduct menial tasks or fight on the battlefield defending them. In addition to their brain-splattering abilities, Flayers could charm monsters, read thoughts, levitate objects, and even shift into different planes. But here's where things get creepy. Illithids used their abilities to incapacitate their prey, stunning multiple foes at a time. They'd then drag them away, feeding on their victims' brains with sucking tentacles. Now, how does a society comprised of evil like this even work? Most Mind Flayer communities ranged in size from 200 to 2,000, and this wasn't including slaves. One notable and extraordinary Illithid city, Orendal, had a population of about 26,000, but Mind Flayers accounted for only 3,450 members, the rest were slaves. Each Illithid city lived under what was known as the Elder Brain. The brain was the final stage of the Mind Flayer life cycle, living in a brine-filled pool in the center of each settlement. These Elder Brains filled Illithid dreams with ideations of dominating other species, but these brains also served as the living libraries for a community's history, technology, and knowledge. In addition, they were a political and military advisor to Mind Flayers, operating as a sort of leader. Now, what about those birds and the bees? Illithids were hermaphrodites, and once or twice in a lifetime would lay eggs from which tadpoles were hatched. These tadpoles were kept with the Elder Brain and fed brains by caretakers. Sometimes the tadpoles would cannibalize one another. To make matters worse, the Elder Brain fed exclusively on these tadpoles. Now, tadpoles that survived to maturity were put through a ceremony known as ceremorphosis, where they were implanted in a humanoid victim. They'd then devour its brain, merge with the humanoid body, and transform into a new Mind Flayer. Sometimes, a 1 in 100 chance, a tadpole would turn into an Ulitharid. This is a stronger version of the normal Illithid. They were more sinister, more powerful, and more spiteful than their brethren. Past that, they were seen as nobles in Illithid society, second only to the Elder Brain. So what can we take away from all this? While it isn't clear which version of the Mind Flayer the one in Stranger Things most closely represents, we can infer some data. The Stranger Things Flayer ruled over all the others, and while there weren't any brine pools or tentacle-faced organisms running around it, it seems to be most closely related to the Elder Brain. Of course, you could make easy arguments for the other two, the Illithid and the Ulitharid, but I think the demo dogs you see throughout Season 2 are representative of the Illithids and the Ulitharids, though they clearly aren't as powerful. What we know for sure is the Mind Flayer in Stranger Things used Will Byers as a host and was likely using his body for ceremorphosis, which we talked about earlier. What do you think? Let's talk below. But as always, thank you so much for tuning in to Chosen Totem. I'm your host, Jacob Saylor, and I am signing off.